Okay, so here's what we have. The 2012 Chevy Camaro SS. It's a 6-speed LS3 car. We're going to start our nitrous install kit and the fuel system upgrade with removing the rear subframe. What we're going to want to do here, so we do have multiple things we need to remove, and we'll walk through the process here. But again, this is a lot easier than most people actually know. Basically, you want to start by removing the 4 bolts up here that retain, you'll see them here, the 4 bolts that retain the shock tower here, and that will allow that to fall out. Then we're going to remove 2 main nuts, bolts behind here that hold the caliper in place. We're going to slide that out of the way and hang it here from this position here. You also do have to remove this little 10mm, and these back here, these are 18mm. Alright, so once you remove those, we're going to go behind here and we're going to remove the emergency brake cable, and the cable runs right in here in the back. You can barely see it, but it runs right back in here. We're just going to go ahead and make sure the emergency brake is off first, and then go ahead and remove that. And then we're going to get into the car and start removing some other things before we actually drop the subframe out, and to be continued. So the best technique for getting these strut bolts out, and again, these are, the mounts are going to be right up here, is you really want to get yourself a nice set of long extensions here. That way you can just slide it on up like so, and it slides right on up, and you're able to loosen each one of these bad boys up. Comes right out, no problem. You're going to be able to get 3 of them here, which are these 2 on this side, this one here. But you are going to have a bit of a problem trying to get the one in the back here, and you just want to go and use just a ratcheting wrench, something like what we have here. Those will work out nicely. This is a 15mm, and we just want to grab our 15mm here. Just tuck it all up in there, like so. And again, these have a flexible head on them, so if you don't have a set of these, highly recommend it, otherwise you're going to bust your knuckles up. So I'll go ahead and get in there, loosen it all up, and move on to the next part. Okay, so we went ahead and got the bolts off of here, so that's going to slide right out, no problem here. And we did remove our bracket that holds, our caliper bracket that holds in. There's a bolt here and a bolt here. Going to remove that, and our caliper slid out, no problem at all. Again, you have to make sure no one pushes the brake inside the car, otherwise you're going to have a very real problem having to collapse this caliper again. So make a note to yourself, put a note on the steering wheel, don't push the brakes. We removed this 10mm, and again, if you notice, when I remove stuff, I put it back to where it came from as everything comes out. That way you don't lose any bolts. It makes it a lot easier. I'm just going to use some simple zip ties to hold this out of the way, where it's securely out of the way. It's not going to interrupt anything. It's not going to get tangled up or tear a brake line, which would be a catastrophic nightmare. So anyway, okay, so how to remove this cable. Not hard at all. You just want to go ahead and activate with your finger the actual cable itself, and then just give a little tug to the bracket that it's on. Usually reaching from the bottom here and then pulling out like so, easiest way. And then you just pull in the cable and the whole thing will slide up and out of the way. And be a little bit in the butt, but out she comes. So the next thing we want to do is go ahead and remove this big hulking thing, which is your drive shaft and the little rubber grommet that goes in between here. Again, it's a manual transmission car, so we can rotate it by hand, and it's just 2 large nuts. We also want to notate with a marker which position it was in when it left, so when we put that together, it goes back in the same way that it came out. Now, with that said, we're going to need to remove the exhaust system. We're going to go to remove that bracket right there. It goes across. Then, as you can see at my car, I have some cutouts over there, which is a little bit different from what your setup's going to look at like. We're just going to loosen up the couplers, remove the bracket, pull out the hangers, which are very easy. We do have to have aftermarket exhaust in this car, and then it'll all fall out, and we'll slide it out and move it out of the way until so we can get the subframe to drop out nice and easily. Alright, so what you're going to need here is a Torx. This is a T60. I'm going to go ahead and stick it on this side, and then General Motors, who's in love with 18mm for some reason, their 18mm wrench. And if you notice, I didn't mark the orientation so we can put it back in the same way. Go and stop. So now we're going to move the main bolts that hold the pinion shaft to the drive shaft. This is an 18mm. Easiest just to use a wrench to do this. You need a partner to put the vehicle into first gear, and that's going to allow you to break this loose. And when you break it loose, you're going to remove it. You're going to have your partner go ahead and put the vehicle into neutral. And when the vehicle's in neutral, you can rotate, go to the next one. So we have 4 bolts here. You're going to remove all 4 bolts. And then when we do that, we're going to have jacks supporting the subframe. And then we're going to drop the subframe onto some dollies, some furniture dollies, and then slide it out from underneath. And as it's sliding out, a couple things we got to worry about. We're going to worry about the drive shaft falling out correctly. We're also going to worry about disconnecting the lines for the ABS. Alright, so we loosened up the 4 bolts. We set up our jacks. So we have 1 jack under one of each of the lower control arm mounts. Then we have our little dollies here. They're strategically placed where the lower control arms will land. So now that it's secure, we're going to go in and loosen up the mounts the rest of the way. As you can see, we're loosening up the rest of the way, and we'll drop it out. And as we drop it out, we're being mindful of the drive shaft. We're being mindful of the cable for the ABS. Right, so here's our cable as we drop down the subframe. Just want to squeeze it, pull that out, no problem. You also can't forget the emergency brake cable has a little channel it runs into on both sides. You do have to pull that out before you drop the subframe, otherwise it's going to hang up. And as you can see over here, drive shaft disconnected nicely, no problems there. As you see, as we dropped it out, we put it on the furniture dollies, rolled it from right underneath the car, no problem at all. This has already been upgraded, highly recommended here. Did this last time I had the subframe out. We went ahead and upgraded each of the mounts for the subframe. These are dramatically stronger units. They do a much better job of keeping the rear end planted on this vehicle. So now that this is out of the way, we can go to the fuel tank and remove it. So now that we have the subframe out, there's plenty of room to get to the fuel tank. Again, this is why it's important to not have gas in this tank, is this will make this particular part of the project a lot easier. So we're going to start by removing the 4 small bolts, or sort of nuts that hold on the heat shield, and then we're going to go ahead and remove the purge unit. That way we don't have to remove any of this, mechanisms or whatnot. We're also going to remove the hose for the fuel filler line and any of the other mechanisms here that hook into it, so that we can easily drop it out. After we drop this bolt and this bolt here, the tank will slide out and we're good to go. So what we're going to do is pop out the brake lines, the emergency brake cables. One on one side, another one on the other. We just want to move those out of the way so they clear. We removed the shield here. We went ahead and disconnected the fuel filler tube. We also took off the evaporative line. And you just need a quick close disconnector. You're going to remove the green cable here, and then use your remover tool. Slide it in, push this in, slide that in, and then pull it out at the same time, and it pulls right out, no problem. So now we're going to remove, we have this dangling, the purge unit. This is dangling right now. Doesn't really matter what goes on with that. We remove the bolt here, and there's 2 bolts there and there, and the fuel tank will drop out for us. We're also going to put some support with the 2 jacks and the 2 jacks on either side of the tank, so we can drop the tank out slowly. So we dropped the fuel tank out a little bit here. A couple lines you're going to have to remove with the green clips. The vapor line, you're going to use the tool, push that out after you remove the green clip. And then you're going to have an actual fuel line that you're also going to remove. You just squeeze it on the top here, push it down, and then pull it out. And you're going to get some fuel in this one, so be ready for that. You're also going to disconnect your main cable that connects here to here. Just clip that and clip that, and that's all your wire connections for this. You don't have to do anything else. So now that that's done, we can go into the fuel. So now that we have the tank out, we're going to go ahead and remove the fuel line, very similar to other fuel line. Squish it, push it, pull it out, pops right out. You're going to spill a little bit of fuel when you do this, so be prepared for that. Next one is this cable here. That's for the sending unit on that side, and there's another cable here which goes to the main sending unit. Now if you look at it, you can see it has channels inside. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to turn the ring off here. No problem, we're just going to fill in out of the way. And you can see there's some crud in here. You do not, under no circumstance, want to drop anything into your fuel tank. It will be a bad day for you. So just want to clean this off the best you can. Be very, very mindful. You're trying not to get stuff inside your fuel tank. Alrighty, and then we're just going to fully lift the tank out, the fuel pump out. And this is your fuel pump assembly. It's coming out here. You can see you're going to lose a little bit of fuel here. Make sure no open flames. Don't set yourself on fire. I'm going to empty out the bucket. It'll just take a second. Just have something to soak up the fuel so you're not getting gas everywhere. Gas is not going back. Bad gas is not going back in the tank. And you're going to see you had the same clip. Very easy on this one. Just squeeze it, push it in, pull it out. Alright, so we got that off. Dump a bunch of fuel back into the tank as you possibly can. And we're just going to remove the fuel pump and set it off to the side for right now. So we have our ZL1 pump here. And this is just go ahead and reverse what you just did. So we're going to go ahead and plug that in, make sure it's nice and secure. Going to turn it and drop it on in. And there's only one way to do this. So don't be worried about doing it wrong. Okay, so let's go ahead and press the fuel pump into place. And again, the orientation is that way. We're going to grab our ring here, like so. Drop it down until it hits the channels. I'm just going to slightly turn it here, and then we'll get a screwdriver and lock her into place. Okay, so we're going to reinstall our fuel line, push it on, push the clip down, secure, reconnect our cables. This slides in like so. This one slides in like so. I'll put it back into its channel here. Everything's good, 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 good. Alrighty. And the fuel pump portion is done. So now we can just start reassembly. But before we start reassembly, we're going to go in and run our nitrous lines. Since we have everything out underneath the car, it's a good time to go ahead and do that while there's plenty of room and nothing in the way. Okay, so here we're in the trunk section. I removed the carpeting here, as you can see. I do have subwoofers that fit in the side here and here, so the nitrous thing can't go there. And I have my amp there, so I didn't want it in front of my amp. So I mounted it right here in the corner. You can see it's not mounted currently. I just propped it up to see exactly where I was going to put it. I did weld the nuts in. I didn't have a video of that, but it is very easily done. Not hard at all. Just make sure you a welding mat so you don't burn down your car. As you can see, one of the reasons I did it too is there's a little grommet right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that grommet with a razor blade, and I'm going to push the line, by the way, the nitrous line, by the way. When you do this, make sure you cover it so you don't get crap in there, because crap in your the nitrous line will cause problems. I'm just going to push it through, and then I'm going to feed it through the bottom while we have everything off, and I'll show you why here in a moment. So here's where the grommet is under the car. This is the mounting place of where we pulled out the purge unit. So we know this is a safe area. So when you bring the line out here, just going to bring it out to the side, and then we know that the brake line runs a safe path. So what we're going to do is just pop it out right here to the brake line, follow the brake line all the way to the front of the car. Alright, just like I showed you guys, went ahead and used the grommet, pierced it, got myself about 2 feet of line so that when the tube is here, it hooks right in. Got plenty of line to play with, no problem there. And then, like I said, the routing down here is actually very good having the fuel tank out, because it pops right out the bottom. We're going to have the purge canister here. We're going to run this line right up there. And knowing that the fuel line, the brake line's safe, we just went ahead and attached to the brake line the whole way down through here. Down through here, removed the plastic cover for this here, and then routed it in there, remounted it again, and it'll just follow the rest of the way. Follow the brake line and fuel line, so that the nitrous will pop up by the brake booster, which is where we're going to put our valves at. Alrighty, so fill tanks back in. Again, very easy, exactly what I said. You want to go ahead and just put the fuel tank into place, connect your lines, your vapor line, your purge line, your electrical connection, reconnect your filler hose, reconnect the other vapor release line, bolt this bad boy back in, put the 4 bolts back in the tank, you're good to go. And then go and reinstall the heat shield that you have here. And as you can see, our plumbing here for the nitrous worked out beautifully. Fits perfectly in, can't even tell it's there, looks factory. Exactly what we're looking for. So now that we got this all done, we'll go ahead and move on to the tow rod on the subframe so we can put that back together and reinstall that. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and replace these tow rods. And basically what this is going to do is, this is our weak stamped steel factory unit with rubber bushings. And when you're burning out and putting pressure on this rear end, what's going to happen is this tow rod is going to want to go back because it's not very strong. But that's going to cause wheel hop. It's going to cause binding in that axle, which is going to cause premature failure of the axle. So what we've got here is the BMR replacement units, tubular steel, poly mounts. I went ahead and, as you can see, as Zerk fitting, I went ahead and lubricated these already. You definitely want to lubricate them. They will be noisy otherwise. And they're direct replacements. We're just going to take that bolt out there, take that bolt out there, and then put these direct in place. And then we have the little fittings that will allow the brake lines, the ABS lines, to hook directly into it. Okay, so we have the new bar in place here. One thing you want to make sure of is you want to get some extra grease and grease ends before you do this, because again, if you don't have grease in there, it will squeak. It's very annoying. Second thing is, you'll notice right here, I did mark, it has an eccentric on it for alignment. I did mark where it was before. That way, when this is all said and done, we had the alignment redone, it's going to be pretty close. That way we don't run into any problems in case, you know, I don't get to the alignment shop. If a little while, it buys me some time.
You just have it under here. Be easier.
Okay, so this is morning after. Last night finished reinstalling the subframe. It's very easy. Again, same thing as the removal. We went ahead and put rolled it underneath, put the jacks underneath, jacked it up. We're just being mindful again of the input shaft for the drive shaft. We're making sure that it was lined up as we put it in. Also make sure that the emergency brake cables weren't getting binded, and then making sure that the top of the strut towers were going in the slot where they belong. And jacked it up, bolted it in, no problem at all. We're good to go. And then plug back in the ABS wires. Put the exhaust temporarily in place here. We're going to leave it out just because we need it out of the way when we're doing some wiring and stuff. Just gives us more room to work. Again, just for a quick note to reassembly, 10mm hook bracket for the hose line. We had the two 18mm in the back of the caliper bracket you had to reattach. We put the emergency brake cable back in the slot here, reattached it to the activating arm in there, put the 4 bolts back into the strut tower brace. As you can see our nice little upgraded tow rod there. A lot stronger, a lot better than the original stock flimsy piece. And then we went ahead and bolted down the drive shaft again where it belonged and just double checked everything. I did give the car a test start to make sure we had no fuel leaks and we are good to go. So part 1 is accomplished, and stay tuned for part 2.